Okay, welcome to part 4, where we'll talk about child development needs in the first video, and then we'll go on to core functions of child protection and child protection systems, child protection services in TNT, children in need of special protection, and then we will close off this little video series. So these are the objectives of the second half: to identify 4 key areas of development for children, to raise awareness on a number of developmental factors that are often overlooked by parents, to define child protection, to identify the child protection systems that are available in our country, to highlight the steps to be taken when reporting cases of child abuse, exploitation, or abandonment, and finally to identify groups of children that may be at risk and may require protection. So first off, child development needs, and we're going to start off with a question. What does it mean to say that parenting begins with you? A, you're their role model. B, your children want to copy everything you do. C, as a parent, you need to get your own act together. D, children learn more by what's caught than by what's taught. E, none of the above. Or F, all of the above. So the correct answer is F. Parents are the primary socializers of children. They're the ones who teach the child directly and indirectly simply by being around them. There's a saying that goes, children are the world's best recorders, but they're the worst interpreters. This means that children will observe and absorb everything that they see and everything they hear and everything they're exposed to. However, they might not have the experience and the knowledge to be able to fully understand what they were exposed to in the first place. They may also not be able to see it from the same perspective that you do. Because as children, key word here, their development is not at the same level as an adult, and they also do not have the same knowledge and experience to back up the reasoning that they come to in their mind when they hear or see something. Second question. Which of the following actions by a parent would likely be most effective in fostering the moral development of young children? A, involving the children in creating specific behavior rules while at home. B, helping the children understand how their actions may affect others and consistently modeling caring and equity. C, establishing a set of clear behavior rules at the beginning of the year and applying consequences without exception. D, awarding a prize each Friday to the child who has been most cooperative during the course of the week. The answer is B. According to social learning approaches like Albert Bandura's social learning theory, children can learn moral behavior by observing the behavior in other people. By modeling appropriate social behavior for children, the parent provides children with specific examples of how to treat others that the child can emulate. Explaining how different behaviors can affect others negatively or positively can help children learn the reasons why they should or should not act in certain ways. So, now we're going to talk about how to think of your child's brain. How do we understand it? How do we begin to conceptualize what's happening in their brains? Their development, their brain development, does not stop after early childhood. However, it is the foundation upon which the brain will continue to develop. Early childhood is the time to build either a strong and supportive or a fragile and unreliable foundation. Construction of the brain is somewhat like the construction of a house. So, you can think of it this way. Imagine that a child's brain is like a house that's just been built. The walls have gone up and the doors are hung. Then you go to the store and you buy electrical wiring, switches, a fuse box, and other electrical supplies. You bring these supplies to the new house and set them down on the floor. Will they work? Probably not. You first must string the wiring and hook up all of the connections. This process of all the wiring coming together and connecting is quite similar to the way our brains are formed. Early experiences have a decisive impact on the actual architecture, the structure, and the function of the human brain. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the 4 key areas of brain development. First, we have physical development. So the development of gross motor skills. So that means the skills that require the use of large groups of muscles. Things like sitting down, standing, walking, running, keeping your balance, maintaining stability and changing positions, turning your body around. But then there's fine motor skills, which involve smaller scale but far more intricate movements of muscles. Things like using your hands to be able to eat, using utensils, being able to draw using a pen and pencil, being able to dress yourself, to put together the buttons on a shirt, to play, to write, and many other things. Then we have emotional or moral development. So being able to identify and understand your own feelings, the feelings of other people, to be able to express your feelings to other people, and to be able to build and maintain healthy relationships. And now going on to the third one, as a parent, you may not necessarily always think about the emotional development as much, even though it is happening and we are influencing it constantly. Sometimes your concern as a parent may tend to fall more on their cognitive development. How well do they learn? Will they be able to fit in a classroom setting? Will they have any kind of intellectual problems? So that's where we get into cognitive development, like using language, speaking, using your body language to convey certain messages, using gestures when you speak, communicating with other people and being able to understand when other people communicate towards you, or towards the child, I should say. Then there's their thinking skills, including their ability to learn, to understand, to comprehend the things that they read or observe, to solve complex problems, to use reasoning, and to use their memory. And finally, we have social development, their ability to interact with other people, to have relationships with family, friends, teachers, to learn cooperation, to be able to show good civic behavior, or to fit in amongst a group in society. Right, so some critical periods of brain development. Every experience, regardless of what it is, if it's seeing a rainbow for the first time, touching an animal, playing with your pet or playing with your friends, even falling down outside in the yard, riding a bicycle, reading a book, telling a joke, all of these things affect different, what we call neural circuits in the brain, and it leaves other ones inactive. So different parts of your brain will light up depending on what you do or what happens to you, or how you react to certain things that happen to you. Those that are consistently triggered over time will naturally strengthen. It's like going to the gym to exercise. The muscles that you work out more often will naturally become stronger, more durable, right? While those that are rarely excited may be dropped away. Or, as neuroscientists like to quote, cells that fire together, wire together. Okay, so this table shows Erik Erikson's stages of development, and it covers all the proposed development stages within an individual's entire lifespan. But we don't need to focus on all of that stuff. We only need to focus on infancy to 18 years of age. So infancy to adolescence. And this table shows what we're going to get a little deeper into in a second, but it summarizes that each developmental stage marked by a certain age period, example, early childhood 2 to 3 years, is built on a basic conflict such as autonomy versus shame and doubt. And that is centered around certain important events in the development of the child. And depending on the outcome of those events or the response to certain actions that the child performs, they will essentially achieve certain things in their mind, certain milestones in the development of the brain. So an example is trust versus mistrust, and we'll go into that now. It's the period of birth to 18 months. The focus here is developing trust. The accomplishment of this is highly dependent on the parents or the other caregivers providing care. Things like warmth, food, hugging, stimulation, or the act of feeding a child. The child's self-concept as a lovable and worthwhile person has its roots in this particular age period. This is where the child learns that they're important to the mother, to the father, that they are a crucial being in these people's lives. Since trust is a major building block for all relationships, every area of development physical, intellectual, social, is likely to be affected by the events of this stage. Now we're going into the 18 months to 3 years. The child's task here is to establish a distinct self, separate from parental figures. The primary needs are increased control over feeding and toilet habits, so autonomy, without experiencing rejection or harm from too much independence. The child begins to learn about limits, so hot stoves, use of objects, stairs, streets. The child learns that certain actions that they take, certain things that they do will have a negative response. The child gets angry easily, and they tend to learn to assert themselves. So at this age, a child is more likely to be saying no, 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 no to everything. That's their favorite word at this point in time. This period is especially connected to their physical growth, especially the capacity to walk, to run, climb, and to control their bodily functions. Then we go to the stage that is 3 to 7 years. The child's major task here is to develop a sense of reality that is distinct from the fantasy. A primary concern here to the child is sex differences, and it includes interest in pregnancy and birth. They're curious about these things. It's also a period of high creativity. There's a strong need to make distinctions between what is real and what they imagine in their head. Next, we go on to the period of 7 to 12 years. The child's task here is to develop a sense of values to guide decision-making and interests, as well as capabilities that lay the foundation for future decisions. The needs of the child will revolve around tasks, hobbies, and skill-oriented activities. Friendship with the peers, especially of the same sex, is important. Their sense of competition is heightened, and so is the preoccupation with their ability to perform or to do well compared to other people. Then finally, we have adolescence, the period of 12 to 18 years, to create a personal identity based on the integration of values and a sense of self. That is the purpose of this phase. The adolescent must establish an identity relative to society, the opposite sex, ideas, the future, possible vocations or callings for their career, etc., and the greater universe. The establishment of independence. This, however, can create a lot of tension with the family over limits, things that they should or shouldn't do, things that are okay for them to do, values that may contradict the values of other family members, responsibilities, friends, and their plans for the future. This is where you will get the tension between a teenager and their parents, because their views are changing. They're no longer accepting what is given to them necessarily. So now, to end this part of part 4, this video, we will go into some myths and facts. First myth, at birth the brain is fully developed, just like one's heart or stomach. False. Most of the brain cells are formed before birth, but most of the connections among cells are major in infancy and early childhood. So all those connections we talked about, like riding the bike, learning to write certain things, to have conversations with other people, those wires coming together, that does not already exist before birth. That has to happen through socialization. A newborn's brain is only about a quarter the size of an adult's. In the first year, it's developed 50%. By 3 years, it's developed 80%, and by 5 years, it's reached 90% development. Next myth, the brain's development depends entirely on the genes with which you are born. Early experience and interaction with the environment are most critical in a child's brain development. The connections between the cells in a child's brain are developing constantly. Remember, development during childhood is not the end of the brain's development. Even when you become an adult, there's no point at which you just hit a milestone and your brain stops growing. That doesn't happen. Even into old age, your brain is still changing and molding in different ways, depending on how you use it and how you interact with the world around you. Current research suggests that about 30 to 60% of our brain's wiring depends on heredity, while about 40 to 70% develops based on the interactions with the environment, including your parents. And lastly, children need special help and specific educational toys to develop their brain power. Absolutely false. What children need the most is loving care and new experiences, not special attention or expensive toys. Simple things like talking to your child, singing with them, playing and reading books to them are some of the key activities that will build and develop a child's brain. Evidence has emerged that suggests that activity, experience, attachment, and stimulation, sensory experience like touch, are truly what determines the structure of the brain. And so from here, we will end this part 4 video, and next we will go on to part 5.